Hi, it's been a while. My name is Zach, and today I want to talk about sequels. When a game is released, it can be whatever it wants to be, and sometimes it even is. But when it becomes a series, it has a very important decision to make. What does it mean to be a game? And also, what does it mean to be a part of a series? The first game in a franchise has no baggage when it tries to be fun while saying what it wants to say. But a game's sequel has the burden of telling its own story with its own themes, as well as deciding what it means to be a part of something bigger. What elements make something at home in a series? The sequel decides. Is your series an anthology of stories, connected by their common tropes and themes with some kind of tonal through-line, a la Twilight Zone or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Oh, I'm coming for you, and I'll talk about you one day. Or are your stories extremely similar templates, set in the same universe with the same cast as the characters progress through a continuous story, a la Fast and Furious? You know, I'm not disparaging it, by the way. I really do like this series, just only after they added turns during races, starting onward from the third movie. That's not a joke, that's a funny truth. I'm about to cover a lot of ground, so you need to stay focused. All hands inside the vehicle, please. No sightseeing. Let me know if you'd like me to talk about any of these games in more detail. I won't, but if you leave a comment, then the all-holy algorithm might spread my word like a virus, much akin to the conventional viruses I otherwise spread. Some sequels are straightforward, like Call of Duty. Hey, kid, hey, adult. You liked that last game, right? Well, here's that same game again, but with some tweaks. We'll improve graphics, tighten controls, maybe experiment with some sound effects and guns to improve their feel. We might rebalance some perks, maybe some game modes and maps. Periodically, we'll even reincorporate old favorite maps and modes or whatever. Please give us money. Please give us money. Ignore our overt support of war crimes and indoctrination of youth toward a war culture. But sometimes it's more complicated. BioShock was a beautiful game, made of interconnected tubes welded together with ancient rusted rivets driven by mutated slave divers. How lovely. It is to this day one of the greatest tones ever achieved in a video game. The city of Rapture, at the bottom of the ocean, this Art Deco dystopia, has an air full of jazz tunes interrupted under the groans of unmaintained pressure. All the while, you're fighting for your life with just a wrench and mutations of your own. Give me that, Adam. When BioShock's lead game designer, Ken Levine, was consumed by his muse and forgot that professionals have deadlines, his project that would later become the sequel game BioShock Infinite was put on the back burner and had its release delayed, just like what should have happened to you. He directed the original BioShock, which sold pretty well, so Levine was given a lot of freedom, understandably, on his project. Meanwhile, adults got work done. I wish they'd tell me how. Jordan Thomas, hero god of video games and industry sex icon, was putting in hours and throwing out ideas while you were in short pants, kid. Today, people near universally praise BioShock 2 as a masterpiece. They respect its expansion of the world of Rapture, its emphasis on the effect of your choices, and how it manages to weave a cohesive meta-narrative about the significant ramifications of your choices, even despite their relatively minimal impact on your own story. But I remember the old time past. I remember when everyone dunked on this game as if it were Michael Cooper in 1983. Play the clip. Yeah. Nowadays, you're all cowards who took way too long to listen to me. But anyway, my point is that 2 is this deeply polished experience that is both thematically tight and mechanically enjoyable. BioShock 2 decided that to be a BioShock game meant to be about extreme ideologies in a broken dystopia set into some continuity. It asks you questions about free will and what you should use it for, and it tells you such a story within the same halls of Rapture shared with the first game. It strips you of agency and demands you obey. But while you follow the story, you can't help but take your brief moments of action to their greatest extent. You prove that even denied of agency, you serve as a role model for the next generation, which does hold the power of change. And then BioShock Infinite came out. He says, with a massive grin, preparing to demolish an innocent and talented career man. Because, actually, Ken Levine was already taken in by the Archangels. The game was stuck in development hell until Jordan Thomas, patron saint of success and walker of the halls of beauty, had to bail the game out by cutting a ton of content. Sorry, I'm dunking on Levine a lot here, but I'm not Dr. J, and I really do empathize with him. Levine, not Julius Irving. He loves games, probably too much. His vision is incredible, so incredible that his scope grows far beyond the abilities of even the best design team. I really understand it, and I do mean to be silly here rather than serious when I mock him. I hate myself too, after all. I'm just applying the golden rule. BioShock Infinite was an ambitious, massively different direction. After Jordan Thomas, future president of the United States and currently world's ranked number 2,648th in the men's 100-meter dash, joined the team and cut content to meet deadlines, the game became much more similar to the original. It too deals with a dystopian ideal system, but it's much more focused on the mechanics of its gunplay, the immersion of the new setting, the expression of player choice. Unlike 2, which was far more focused, Infinite aims to be a whole new experience, only partially attached to the original. And of the content that was cut, a lot of it pertained to fleshing out the freedom of the player, with interesting set pieces like breaking up an initially non-hostile faction rally. It's clear that Levine heard the meta-narrative criticisms that came from the first game, and himself felt kind of frustrated with the tools, limited as they were, of expression to make a game that was truly free mechanically. I get it. That's a tall order. One day when he figures out how to do it, I'd love to see it. We might even see it soon, maybe. I hope I don't eat those words. BioShock 2 felt more like it wanted the series to be centered in the ruins of Rapture, focused on tight narratives that focus on the philosophy of freedom and how that reflects on your mechanical expression. However, Infinite was far more interested in establishing a new, incredible tone and giving the player more fun ways to express themselves. And as a result, the narrative was far less philosophical and far more, well, I'll generously call it nonsense. As a result, the series ended up pulled into 2 directions. Though those directions had similarities, the result is that what it means to be a BioShock game is that you analyze a dystopia. And honestly, that's kinda lame. All the games have a meta-narrative centralizing around the freedom of a video game player, I guess, but they have wildly variable success in these attempts. BioShock, the franchise, ends up fighting with itself over its own meaning. And this blurs the franchise direction into something that necessarily must be a result of the consistencies of the 2 games, which are quite dissimilar. The result is unclear. And then you have the DLCs. Now, we actually have a reporter live on the scene to discuss their effect on the meaning of the BioShock franchise. Oh, what? Oh, I'm sorry, they quit. Well, I guess we'll never know. But I'm sure it's consistent with the best parts of the games that I've described so far. Let's move on. Now, much like cousin Eugene, who doesn't pay his taxes, you don't have to let your past define you. You can choose to go a completely different direction. But unlike cousin Eugene, this next game series didn't change its name after stealing my prescription meds. Assassin's Creed didn't become popular at first. Sure, it was well regarded for its movement mechanics, but the game's environment and story were also big draws. Altair is your hero, on a quest to preserve peace and free will during the Third Crusade by fighting against the Templar. His story is not one of brawling violence or romance. He slays political rivals and destabilizes governments with an approach of silent efficiency. You have no reasonable alternative to stealth and evasion. Combat, if you really want to use it, is slow and dangerous, and it's ill-advised to engage with multiple combatants. Everything in the game ties back cleverly to its larger story's narrative. Because you see, this isn't really a game about Altair. In the near future, you are a descendant of an ancient order of trained killers who infiltrate religious orders and assassinate corrupt targets, all while you slowly narrow in on the location of one of God's relics for your organization to claim in the future. The bulk of the game is spent piecing together the mystery of the future while learning the story of your ancestor as he unravels his own plot of betrayal in ancient Jerusalem. Oh, and there's parkour. It's a really fun puzzle aspect to the game, and it's a fun blast to just run around the half-built cities. Between the free-running, the conventional stealth, and the social stealth, for the time, it really felt like you had an unparalleled amount of freedom. And the reason why I love Assassin's Creed is because it makes you feel like an assassin. You aren't taking shortcuts. You have to sit on a bench and eavesdrop on conversations. You're constantly interrupted by traveling to an old location, talk to your boss, go back, meet with your contact, dip over into a shop all sneaky-like so you're not caught. That way, you maintain your network, and then, skip off to get some more intel, and whoops, looks like it's time to run from the guards again. Now, my inner child would like me to emphasize that this isn't very fun. Okay, that's a bad start to the argument. Nah, you're gonna sit down and listen, don't leave. It's immersive. Look, I'm an adult. And I'm really used to being miserable. I played the 3rd chapter of The Long Dark while over in Comber, baby. I played Receiver, man. I like games that treat me badly, I'm broken. And you'll be too when you pay taxes. Unlike, say it with me, Cousin Eugene. Thank you. Every single game in the Assassin's Creed franchise, since the first, has united into a single direction. And that direction is completely different from the original. It's why I've never liked any of them as much, even though I understand that they're far, far more fun in the conventional sense. The game series exploded into the zeitgeist when the sequel dropped. Suddenly, the game was famous, and I mean famous, because it shifted focus away from the routine task of the Assassin's Order and the mystery of the modern-day Desmond, and instead prioritized making the main part of the game fun. Revolutionary, I know. This change in focus is reflected in the historical accuracy, too. The earlier games would take real-world events and squeeze the narrative into it, making something you could call historical fiction while retaining your ability to have respect in your community. As they went on, the games stretched further until eventually they included things like Greek myths being real in the more recent games, but who cares, right? I mean, fighting a Minotaur is fun. The parkour was continually expanded over the years and given more options. Combat became fleshed out and detailed to empower the player and blend better with the movement and your character. Oh, baby, we're going from this...
The Master believes the Templars have found something. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
...to this...
Buonasera, Viera. We were just talking about you. I'm surprised to see you here. I thought the Patsy hired others to do their dirty work.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed 2 immediately has a far more interesting, bombastic protagonist. Ezio is a heartthrob brawler who fights in gangs and fights the Pope in a far more dynamic setting of the Italian Renaissance. The free running is improved with more options, the enemies are weaker and more numerous and varied to give you more spectacle, and the plot is so much less intricate, but more diverse and with stronger character designs. From there, they made every next game more and more focused on the fluidity of the combat, the options of free running, new gimmicks, more dynamic settings, we have boats now, sharks, pirates, the Greek gods! Is that a Minotaur? Are real! Gods are real? Aliens too. God is an alien! God is an alien! The series moved away from the boring work. You're not an assassin anymore. You're not plotting targets. You're gathering no intel. There's no repetition. It's not a job anymore. Altair was a methodical killer in a politico-religious order of intrigue. Ezio and Edward are just some real rapscallions. And once you get into the Greek heroes and the Vikings, I mean, come on, we're just adventuring at this point. Again, it's really fun. It's a blast to play. But what I loved about the first game was that I felt completely immersed in the role of a political assassin, whereas the series of Assassin's Creed has decided to be more about adventuring, fighting, sneaking in a world of loose historical inspiration while free running. Oh, and they have boats. But we can go even deeper. What if you define what it means to be a part of your series and then change your mind? Alright, everybody. Let's all hop into our hazmat suits and talk about Pokemon. I'm sure nothing I say here will lead to death threats from strangers. You know, I myself am no stranger to death threats. We have fun here. The Pokemon franchise has changed a lot since its inception. Yes, Pokemon has added something new to every generation of games. I know that it's pronounced Pokemon, but I have self-respect. Like I said, I pay taxes, so I'm going to be pronouncing it my way. Pokemon has added something new to every generation of games, but I'm not talking about that. No, I don't mean to discuss the new elemental types they added, or the double battles, triple battles, terrain imprints, friendship, abilities, link abilities, hidden abilities, paradox Pokemon, time warps, mega evolutions, Dynamax, overclock evolutions, terastallization, the removal of Watchog from the Pokedex, or even the removal of HMs. Alright, some of those I made up, but honestly, they fit in, right? Like, don't they? I'm a little proud. No, instead of all that, I'm referring to fundamental ideas of what it means to be a Pokemon, let alone a game in the franchise. Many concepts that now are taken as foundational were not yet codified into the world's rules. Pokemon were originally creatures that existed alongside real-world animals. That's why Pikachu is called the mouse Pokemon. In the anime, you see squirrels and birds and stuff alongside the fantastical monsters. When the game took off and got a sequel, People didn't know what to expect. When it started to be shown that they were adding new Pokemon, people flipped out. According to our expert, Timmy on the playground, there were only 151 Pokemon, but suddenly, now they were regional. Not only that, there were tie-ins. In the first game, Pikachu was the youngest in its line, but in this new game, you could get something even littler and then train it up into transforming into a Pikachu. Previous Pokemon, like Big Egg, my beloved, were standalone Pokemon, but now, we saw they had an evolution. New mechanics were added like breeding and held items, and new elemental types were introduced. But this is just a list of mechanical gimmicks. What really made this sequel game special were the implicit decisions that betray exactly what this world was meant to be. This is Dunsparce. You may know him as a pathetic little joke creature, based on a Japanese yokai. That's like a cryptid, think Bigfoot. Dunsparce is bad. Let's laugh at him right now. Even by the low standards of beating the game's story mode, that was made, I remind you, for children. Dunsparce has no notable moves, stats, or typing, and yet, it's one of the rarest Pokemon to find. It's located only in a single spot in the entire game, hidden away. Why, you ask? Because it doesn't matter if it's good. Sneasel, a little bit better, because it has some okay stats, but it's otherwise terrible, and its typing doesn't even work with its stats. And it's also a 1% encounter. At best, it's a 5% encounter in a situation. Even Stinky Yanma has a 1% encounter rate. And there's this guy, Larviator? I don't know, I never heard of that one, but he probably amounts to very little. Not only are the encounter rates low, you're also forced into different encounter tables during the day or the night. That's right. You not only need to try to seek out a 1% encounter in the time before there were prolific internet guides, but you also had to take a hopeful guess and try again at night, just in case there was another rare creature hiding there. And remember what you're doing this for. Stinky Yanma. My point is that this is intentional. The 100 Pokemon added in Gen 2 sucked. They are slow, they're weak, they will not survive the winter. With few exceptions, they are worse to use than the original 150 Pokemon. That's why Heracross is an honorary Kanto Pokemon. He moves different, man. Boxes, no cap. How was that? Did I say that right? But they're still so lovable, right? Look at these little guys. And this isn't a joke. This is serious business, actually. These designs are expressive and natural, and the game takes huge efforts to ingratiate them into the narrative of the world and our hearts. They look shiny and fresh, literally like new plastic. Compare the vibrant Stinky Yanma, Apom, or Houndour to the more muted and organic Vileplume, Golem, or Charizard. Look at Scizor and Blissey compared to Scyther and Chansey. It's a vibrancy versus a naturality. My point is that this is intentional. It implies that Generation 2 wanted to enhance the original, almost like a DLC, rather than supplant it. Even down to the game's core theme of respect for the past, Johto seeks to return you to Generation 1. It has you return to the prior region, and check in on how the world has changed since the first games. Can you imagine a world where these were the first Pokemon? This might be presumptuous of me to say, but at least to my view of them, they don't really stand on their own, do they? Snubbull only works when you're looking for an alternative to Rattata. Stinky Yanma is only neat when you're tired of Venomoth. These Pokemon are sleek and stylish, and you want to use them because they're new toys. They flesh out the world, working as filler, padding, and they serve to be vibrant extras in the background of a scene. I like these designs, they're good, and when I was a kid, I adored them more than the originals. But I did so because they allowed me to play more with my original toys too. They were new friends that heightened the original experience. Gotta catch 'em all. Gen 2 was the only time we've had 2 regions, disregarding the other times that we had them, which you should disregard. The games wanted you to clear through this new place and then check back on the old digs. You're meant to enjoy Gen 2, contingent upon your enjoyment of Gen 1. The boss battles of Gen 2 have practically no Pokemon that originate from their game, instead being mostly a showcase of the cool Pokemon from the first game. Why? It's not because the new Pokemon are weak. After all, the first game had its final boss Gauntlet pretty pathetic. Quick, show him on the screen. Yeah. Tired Onyx, huh? No, it's instead because you're meant to see the old within this new region. These new enemies are still using your old tools against you, and this time, because you know those tools already exist, it feels novel. You recognize them. You feel something already connected to these things, while you're simultaneously experiencing the joy of discovery. The plot of the first generation centralized around the dastardly Team Rocket and their mafia-like plot to kidnap people and Pokemon alike as they stole valuable technology and held notable people hostage for their talent. You, in that game, not only stop this organization, but you also undermine their leader from his position within the gym leader system. However, in Gen 2, the plot centralizes around this same team, headless, without their leader, flailing and struggling to convince him to lead once again. Now, isn't it weird that all of this kind of sounds like criticism? After all, what I described could still be put into an incredible game, right? So why does it feel like these are bad things for a Pokemon game? Well, because if you know anything about what Pokemon came to be, it conflicts with these design plans. The fun-hating psychopaths who complain about Gen 2 foam at the mouth when they... Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's just a raccoon. Anyway, starting in Gen 3, Pokemon Now was rock steady in their outline. You're always going to a complete new region with its own batch of Pokemon, and they stand alone. While they still bring in many Pokemon from the past, it's often much less. The focus is on the new guys. Yes, Pokemon is still about discovery and exploration, but to a lesser extent, a more focused extent. No longer is it a dozen Pokemon impossible to find, maybe it's only a couple. In Emerald, you might play the whole game only seeing a Chimecho once, and being baffled because it's terrible, yet has a 1% encounter rate in one tiny patch of grass. Very Johto-pilled, Dunsparce-coated. How about that? Did I do that one right? Hey, while I have you here, was that your raccoon in the studio earlier? What was up with that? Gen 3 committed harder to filling a template that worked. Yes, Gen 2 had some early game rats and birds, but Gen 3 had some psychic types that were weak early, strong late, and just a little challenging to catch. It had a dumb fish that grew up into a big boy if you invest in it. Gen 3 invests in its story and themes with full conviction, taking an environmentalist approach that's also reflected in its many water routes and thorough Pokedex of water types. And even though the adventure is informed by the same template as what made the first game work, it still operates in isolation. This became what Pokemon was. To this day, that is still Pokemon. Sequels have a tough job because they must predict the future. What made your first game great? Well, sometimes it's obvious, but that can be a complicated question. You as the creator can be wrong about what did it. When it made Gen 2, the Pokemon franchise stood for the interconnectivity of all its creatures, when in reality, we now know that the charm of Pokemon has been the individuality of its creatures. We want to see each little guy shine through for the person who loves it. Someone out there likes Palisand for some godforsaken reason. And you know what? Just like this raccoon, we should give those people another chance. Later, perhaps. Nowadays, if you love a Pokemon, you can bring it into your game with your own available tools, like trading between games. The franchise itself doesn't need to. It can make its games without having to cram in the ghosts of games past into the new region. This way, you can still have your fun friend, and the new setting can still have its chance at life. Until Dexit happened. If your favorite Pokemon is Watchog, I'm really sorry about that. Alright everybody, hazmat suits off. Oh, well that's the bell, so I guess we'll pick it up next time. But before you leave, everybody, make sure you study for your test for next video. That's on OSHA 1910 subpart H, alright? So, alright, make sure you're prepared. Alright. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing or something. I'll see you later.